I do want to welcome in our next guest, Jed Ellerbroek, of course, joining us this morning from Argent Capital Management. Jed, thanks for taking the time. A big day. I'm looking at the board. The NASDAQ, the only thing pulling in the red right now. We've got a lot of these major tech headlines to talk about. But the first one I'd love to get your thoughts on is this Meta Alphabet story with the TPUs and how potentially big this could be if this deal comes to fruition.
Yeah. Hey, good morning and happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Yeah, I think it's good news for Meta. Access to more AI accelerator chips is a good thing. They have an early GPU internal ASIC program that they're developing with Broadcom, but it's nowhere near as well developed as Google's. So buying Google's chips will be cheaper than NVIDIA's. The performance won't be quite as good, but the cost difference will more than make up for that. So good news for Meta. We see NVIDIA down and AMD down today. I do think this is worse news for AMD than it is for NVIDIA. AMD has that second position, and I think that is most threatened by this Google Meta deal. You also see Microsoft down today. Anything that's bad news for OpenAI is considered bad news for Microsoft here in most recent weeks, and anything that's good for Google is bad for OpenAI. So I think this highlights Google's really incredible strength across the entire AI technology stack. So yeah, lots of implications from today's announcement. It was a thin announcement, though. There's a lot of unanswered questions. The biggest questions unanswered, in my opinion, are what kind of gross margin is Google going to earn on these sales? And then second, how much capacity does Google have to sell of these TPUs? We know TSMC remains highly constrained.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point that they're all sort of tied into Taiwan Semi, and without that integral linchpin functioning at peak operation, you could potentially bring down the entire trade in terms of their production numbers. But you mentioned that this is a bigger deal for AMD than NVIDIA, so you don't see this as a potential massive market erosion for NVIDIA. You really think the bigger issue here is for the number two player, that right now, Google is not positioned to potentially take on NVIDIA, but only jockey for the second spot.
Yeah, that's right. I think just a little bit of context. Google tripled their purchase of NVIDIA chips this year, 2025, compared to 2024 for their GCP cloud computing unit. So Google knows NVIDIA's chips are better on a performance, per cost basis than their own TPUs. Nonetheless, the TPUs are very valuable, especially for inferencing. So, yeah, I think that this announcement threatens AMD more than it threatens NVIDIA. I think it's a small negative for NVIDIA. Another competitor, of course, is never good news, but I think it's a fairly small negative for NVIDIA. It's a bigger negative for AMD.
All right, and so you also mentioned Microsoft there and its tie-in with OpenAI. I've seen some research coming across this week since Google released Gemini 3, saying that in certain tests it's outperforming ChatGPT 5. Also Microsoft and Oracle have been lagging. How much of that do you think is tied to its association with OpenAI and some of the concern about these circular deals and this AI bubble?
Yeah, I think a lot of the weakness in Oracle and Microsoft in recent weeks is due to less confidence in OpenAI's, competitive position vis-a-vis Google's Gemini. Gemini is on par or better than OpenAI's most recent model. I think that we live in a world where the models are going to be maybe not interchangeable, but there will be several excellent models for all use cases. And so OpenAI has a very strong position in the consumer market. Most of those users are not paying, but OpenAI will successfully monetize those over the next couple of years, whether it be subscriptions or referral fees on purchases, advertising, etc. I think that the weakness in Microsoft feels overdone. I think Microsoft's positioning in the market, their revenue growth is accelerating. Azure is doing wonderfully well. Their software business is doing well. Security is doing well. So I think that the decline in Microsoft is a bit overdone. And then, yeah, Oracle's, committed so much capacity to OpenAI's workloads that Oracle just has kind of an ironclad tie to OpenAI at this point, and that's been to the detriment of their stock over the last couple of weeks. I mean, that stock is down by 30-40% at this point just in the last month.
Yeah, it's had a significant drawdown while we've seen Alphabet just tear to the upside. I think up, what, 92%? I feel like I was just talking about 92%, yeah, in the last 6 months. A wild move to the upside. So as we look at that, and the big headline this morning is it's getting closer to this $4 trillion market cap. We're still not quite there, but they're pretty close. As we look at that, do you think that now that's made Alphabet since it's the best performer now in the Mag 7, is this now the new must-own stock, or have we gotten a little bit ahead of the fundamentals here on some of these recent headlines?
I don't think that the strength in Google stock is ahead of the fundamentals. I do think it's one of the biggest AI winners in the stock market. Perhaps not up there with Nvidia, but approaching and not far behind. Google has so many competitive strengths as it relates to AI. They have leading foundation models. They have the second, or third best chip now. They have unmatched distribution in the consumer market with all the things that us consumers are using every day: YouTube, Gmail, Google Search, AI mode now, and on and on. They have a strong position in the business market with GCP and their cloud computing unit and all the productivity apps that they've built. So really incredible strength from Google. I think it was massively underestimated or underappreciated by the market 6 months or a year ago. And I think that was due to the regulatory, court cases, the anti-monopoly lawsuits. And once those were resolved in, I believe it was August of this year, it's just been off to the races. And I think that their strength, the company's capabilities, like I said, across the full stack, are now witnessed and observed and appreciated by a lot more people. And it's an incredibly strong company, and their revenue growth is accelerating.
And Jen, I saw in the notes that you sent over before our talk that you said that you also feel that Amazon now is underappreciated, sort of putting itself into that camp that Google was in before they fixed all of their potential legal issues. What specifically do you think the market is missing about Amazon, and should it be a bigger part of this AI cloud positioning conversation? Because I'm looking at the chart year to date, they're only up 4%.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so 6 months ago, I just said I thought Alphabet was the most underappreciated AI winner in the market. I think now that role is held by Amazon. So many of the things I listed as strengths for Google also apply to Amazon. Amazon has their own, pretty well-developed in-use internal chip program, balancing their dependence on NVIDIA chips. They have the leading cloud computing unit for businesses and government in the world. Their retail business is performing exceptionally well. It's the fastest growing large retailer in the world. Costco and Walmart are trailing there, doing well, but trailing Amazon's revenue growth. And then, of course, big profit improvements in retail due to all of the automation and robotics efficiencies that Amazon is installing in their warehouses. So I think Amazon is a big AI winner. I think the market underappreciates it. I think the valuation is attractive. And as you said, the stock has been an underperformer this year in a strong market. So I expect Amazon to have a really strong 2026. It's the favorite stock and the largest position that we have in the ETF I manage, which is ticker ABIG.
Well, Jed, we appreciate you being with us to talk Mag 7 and some of these big tech headlines that we're coming across, and also the tech sell-off we're witnessing this morning. It's Jed Ellerbroek, Portfolio Manager at Argent Capital Management. Thanks again.